Good evening and welcome to Transition Talks Tuesdays, a partnership between the School District of Janesville and the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. We are excited to present the third in our series of, I don't even know how many, but we hope you'll keep coming back. And so we'll post, if you haven't registered for more, which most of you have, we will post the registration at some point into the chat if you're like, oh, I want to come back and know more, because there's going to be some more awesome presenters going on. Tonight, we are going to be learning about higher education options. What do I need to know? We know that some of our students want to go to school after high school. But should they choose a four-year college, two-year college, a tech college? Should they take a year off? How, if they choose to go to college, what supports are available for our kiddos with disabilities and special needs? And so tonight we're going to learn a little bit about some options and supports from Deb Gilster at Blackhawk Technical College, and also Marissa Rehor and Potraz from the UW-Whitewater. So really excited to have them along. Please feel free to put questions into the chat as we go along, or I will try to keep track of unmuting as well. So that's enough out of me. You guys just take it away. I'm looking forward to listening tonight.
Alrighty, thanks, Tim. Hello, everybody. My name is Deb Gilster, and I am the Access and Accommodations Coordinator at Blackhawk Tech.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Rehor, and I am the Transition Outreach Coordinator at the Center for Students with Disabilities at UW-Whitewater.
Hello, I'm Potraz. I am the Disability Services Coordinator at the Rock County campus, as well as our main campus.
All righty, so I really appreciate all of you coming here and taking your time to spend the evening, a little bit of time with us. We are all Allie and Marissa and I are able to take questions. You know, I know Tim will cut us off, but we will all give you our contact information, or Shayna, I know, also has our contact information. So if you have questions or whatever beyond tonight, feel free to ask us. Since a lot of the things that we're talking about are pertainable to both Whitewater and Blackhawk Tech, we kind of broke it up that I'm going to do a little bit of talking about preparing for the next step. And then Allie and Marissa are going to do more of some specific stuff to Whitewater and then some accommodation stuff. And then we'll both be available to answer questions. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly how to share my screen, so I'm going to see if I can do that. Share. Do you guys see preparing for the next step on your screen?
Yes, Deb.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm not sure. All right, so my role at Blackhawk Tech is the Access and Accommodations Coordinator, otherwise known as Disability Services. So what I do is I work with students who have some sort of disability, whether it's a 504 plan or a IEP or even just a medical diagnosis. I work with those students that have gotten accommodations in the past, and I help them with accommodations once they decide to go on to school. But I also do a lot of working in the high schools with doing this types of transitional work. I go to IEPs and 504 plans and all of those different types of things. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about preparing for that next step. So I always ask either, parents or students or case managers, are you ready to graduate? Is your student ready to graduate? And then what kind of job are you looking for? What are your goals? What are your skills? What do you want to do? How are you going to get training? Because we find a lot of students, when they come to me, they say, oh, well, I'm going to be a, basketball player, but they've never played basketball. Or, oh, I'm going to be a video game designer, but they don't know that video game designing includes computer programming and mathematics and all of those different things. So really beginning to have those conversations with students about what's the difference between a job and a hobby, be, and what types of training, what types of things do I need to do in order to move my goal or career choices into the real world. So so it's really important, you know, a lot of times I get students that they've registered at Blackhawk, they've planned all their classes, and then they're showing up that first week of classes and say, hi, I'm here, help me, you know, which is great. And I'm totally willing to help, but it's even better to begin planning before that. So I really appreciate all of you being here, because you can help that transition for your students by, you know, working with them to write their IEP goals. You know, maybe they can take, you know, start college now classes, or, you know, transcripted credit classes. They can take classes for college credit at your high schools. You know, they can, if they're struggling with basic skills classes, math, reading, you know, especially like math classes, a lot of students don't have to take math their 12th grade year, so they choose not to. And then when they come to college, it's like, oh, I still don't know how to add, or what's a fraction? You know, those things that you could help your students continue to learn, even though they don't have to, is something that's also extremely important. You know, and then, you know, Whitewater has different tests than we do. Whitewater's on a different, I know you guys have a different type of placement testing. We use ACT, or we use the AccuPlacer. So there's multiple tests that different students can take. So helping them learn about what, depending on where they're going, what types of requirements are needed for whatever school it is that they choose. And then becoming a self-advocate. You know, another thing that self-advocacy piece is, students usually do not take a real active part in their IEP. So they might not even know what their disability is. So it's very helpful if you have a student with a disability that they actually know what their disability is, and they can describe it. You know, I don't necessarily care if a student has a learning disability or dyslexia or ADHD or an anxiety disorder. What I really care about is, how does it affect them? You know, because that's, once they get to college, it is what their barriers are, not necessarily what their disability is. So what type of barriers do they have to the classroom or to the different programs that they're taking? So having the student be able to articulate what their disability is, how it affects them, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then accommodations that they've used in the past. You know, a lot of times they say, oh yeah, what kind of accommodations have you had? And they'll just look at me blankly. I said, do you know what accommodations are? No. And I said, well, have you had extra time? Oh yeah. And I said, do you have your tests read to you? Yeah. And I said, okay, those are all accommodations. So beginning to teach them what some of these words are is really helpful for them as they begin to meet with people at the post-secondary level. And even on, you know, in employment, these are also good skills for somebody who's going on to employment. So even if you're thinking, well, there's no way that my student has the ability to go to Whitewater or to Madison or even to BTC, you know, they're just going to go, you know, work with DVR and get a job. And, you know, they still need to know what their disability is and how it affects them, because they're going to have expectations when they're on the workplace that, you know, if the employer doesn't know that they might struggle or have challenges, it's real important for students to be able to advocate for themselves. So that self-advocacy piece becomes extremely important.
Deb, this is Tim. Can I just interrupt really quickly? Because I just want, I love the emphasis that you have on preparing students, because what some people tend to forget is that right now, with that IEP team, with these teachers around them who care about them, this is the perfect time to practice talking about my disability, talking about how to disclose, talking about what my needs are, my preferences and my accommodations, while they still have that supportive environment, because that well-knit, coordinated team goes away. It looks very, very different, which I know you guys are going to get into. But the environment is perfect in high school with those kiddos with IEPs or 504s, to have those supported faculty and staff and educators around that they can practice these skills. I love that point.
Yeah, and it's true. And you know, like you said, Tim, it goes no matter where they're going, whether it's tech college or a, community college or a four-year university, or whether it's on the job, whether it's, stuff that you do in the community and, supports and all, they need to be able to advocate for themselves, because while their parents might still be a part of their lives, once they turn 18, parents don't have a lot of say, and their case managers don't have a lot of say. And, they need to learn to start talking for themselves, or at least knowing what questions to ask. So that's a huge, huge, huge thing that students need to learn. A question that I ask that always gets me into trouble with parents and case managers and other people that, are all about students going on to college is, I ask them, usually when I have them alone, but sometimes at an IEP, do you want to go to college, or are you just doing it because you think you should, or somebody is telling you to? And a lot of times it's just kind of, either for some students, it's just the expectation that they're going to go to college, or for some students, it's the expectation that they'll never be able to. So either way, it begins that conversation of, what does college look like? Why do I want to go to college? How is it going to be different? College is a lot of money, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, and it's not real fun for most students, especially students with disabilities. So, it really has to be something that you want to do, or you're not going to be successful at it. So I would rather you focus on doing it for you, or doing it because this is really where you want to go. And I want a job and I want to get a lot of money, so I'm going to go to college. Well, that's a good motivator. So, why do we want to do this? Well, mom says I have to in order to keep living at home. Well, that might not be the best motivator. So finding out and having that discussion with your kiddos as far as what is the most appropriate route, I think is a really good key factor. This one I just kind of throw in again. I kind of talked about it a little bit, career planning. How do you decide what kind of job you want? But then the training for the job. And then the options. I think I've thrown out some terms. We have the career technical college, we have a 2-year community college, junior college, 4-year colleges. Blackhawk Tech is considered a, vocational trade school type college, where we do a lot of 1 and 2 year degrees that are really more hands-on, very limited, math, English, sociology, psychology, those types of classes. We're really career focused, and that's kind of, where Blackhawk is. Marissa or Allie, do you want to describe kind of like the Whitewater and the Rock County and those types of campuses?
Yeah. So Whitewater, we are, UW-Whitewater has 2 campuses. Allie will go into the Rock County campus, and I work at the main campus. So at the main campus, we have around 1,100 students, or 11,000, I'm sorry, students on campus. And so those students are looking for a 4-year college degree or higher. So we also have master's degrees as well. And we have a whole bunch of different majors and minors. Some common ones are education. We have one of the top business schools in the state of Wisconsin. We have communication sciences and disorders. And I believe another popular one is gaming development and computer science. So that's a little bit about UW-Whitewater's main campus. Allie, if you want to do a little.
Yeah, excuse me. So the Rock campus is significantly smaller. It's there's about 1,000 students. So we are a 2-year college. Students have the option to, if they don't want to get an associate's, they can start out at Rock and decide to transfer elsewhere. Students are able to live on the Whitewater main campus and attend classes at Rock. It's kind of nice for that smaller class size. Another thing I want to mention about the Rock campus is that if a student is worried about their ACT score or something like that, Rock is an all access campus. So as long as the student has graduated from high school, they are welcome to apply. And yeah, that's all I have right now to talk about Rock. We'll be able to explain a little bit more later on.
Okay, yeah, no, and I know you guys have a more information about, but just kind of so that you get a general idea about what the differences are. So that's why, again, it's really important for students to kind of have an idea. They don't want to come to Blackhawk to get their gen eds. Well, Blackhawk doesn't have gen eds, or, I'm just going to go to Rock County to get my gen eds before I become a welder. Well, you don't need to take 2 years of classes in order to become a welder or an auto mechanic. So kind of having a general idea of what, will help you, plan maybe a better direction for students. And one is not better than the other. A lot of, Rock County classes transfer to Blackhawk, Blackhawk transfers to Whitewater. We have a lot of agreements. So, we work really well together. It's just a matter of what is going to be the cheapest, easiest, most direct route for your students. So that's why it's important to kind of help them decide that. And getting those students on campus, like Allie talked about, Rock County is smaller, Whitewater main campus is really large, Black BTC, I think, is slightly larger probably than Rock County, but we have 4 different campuses depending on what you want to do. We have a campus out in Monroe that has, maybe 4 programs, and, the central campus has a lot more than that. So, I mean, really getting your students out there, getting them talking to the instructors, getting them talking to the advisors, meeting with the Office of Students with Disabilities so they can get a feel for how they feel on campus. Is this going to be comfortable? Is it too confusing? Are there too many people? Do I like the people that I would be working with? And really seeking that out. So having your students take advantage, especially during their junior and senior year in those college fairs. Laws, I'm not really going to get into it other than the fact that, remember, laws, IDEA protects K-12. When you graduate, it shifts to the Americans with Disability Act. So there's 2 extreme differences between those. And then my other big plug is because I'm RESNA certified and love ATP. I'm an ATP, assistive technology. Get your kids started with assistive technology, learning brand new classes and a new schedule and all sorts of really amazing things at, the college is overwhelming if then they're also having to learn how to use reading and writing software and speech to text software and navigate email. And so if you can start introducing them to even basic apps on their phone or different things, or have me come out, like I said, I'm totally passionate about all of this. I would be more than willing to come out and educate. I know Sheena's seen me do a couple of AT presentations and stuff too. I mean, I'm more than happy to come out and speak with teachers and do stuff about assistive technology, because I think it's, when you're uncomfortable with it, then you don't promote it to your students and then they get uncomfortable about it. So really helping them learn how to navigate that system of assistive technology is important. So, all right. I talked fast. I threw a lot of information. Now I'm going to turn it over to Marissa, and Marissa and Allie will get through their stuff, and then they will leave some time for questions.
Thank you, Deb. So like Deb was saying at the beginning, we're going to talk a little bit about Whitewater and UROC, and then go into just what accommodations look like in the post-secondary level. So we kind of went over this slide. Allie, do you want to add anything that you didn't add about UROC?
Not that I can think of right now. I'm sure I'll think of something at some point.
All right. Switch over to the next one. Okay.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between high school and college. So there's a lot, and we kind of broken them up into different sections to make it kind of more visual. So if you're looking at the cost, high school, obviously it's free. Whereas college, you have tuition, fees, housing, all that kind of stuff, meal plans, things that you really necessarily probably didn't have to worry about in high school. Now, when it comes to attendance, with high school, attendance taken, they check your homework. And whereas with college, sometimes attendance isn't taken. Homework might not be graded or even checked. So if you had like a reading assignment to do, you might go into class one day and the instructor won't say anything. You're just expected to do the reading. They're not going to have a way to check that. And something I want to point out also with attendance is that with some classes, I mean, I know from experience, and I don't know about you, Marissa, but with like your grades, attendance counts towards your grade. So if you're not going to class, you could really be missing out on a lot of points. And sometimes attendance always, isn't always graded, but it's important that you're going to class. The daily grind. So high school is very structured. You have your different hours, different class periods, and the limits are defined by teachers and parents. Whereas college, it's unstructured. You have some more free time. You really have to learn how to get into a routine and find a schedule that really works for you. And then when it comes to class time, in high school, you're at school for 6 to 8 hours a day. Whereas in college, there may be days where you may not have you may not have classes, or maybe you have 1 or 2 classes, but you're at about an average of 12 hours per week you're in class. So then when it comes to studying time in high school, you study for your tests, you do whatever it takes. Now, whereas college, we tell students that it's about 2 to 3 hours of study time for each hour that you are in class. So if you add that up, it can kind of be a lot. But the structure of college is so different from high school that you're able to work in these times for studying when you have gaps in between classes, things like that. With frequency of exams, tests and quizzes are often in high school. In college, you could have 2 to 4 per semester. As far as academic standards, with high school, your passing grade keeps your seat. Whereas college, you need to get C's or better to keep your seat. And something that's important too to note that if you are in like a certain program for your major, there are certain expectations and standards that you need to meet with your grades. And support team. So in high school, you may have had the same case manager for years, or a resource teacher, something like that. Whereas college, you're going to have a set of new faces. We do, and I think we get into this part later on, but we do have one-on-one case management for students. So when they are paired with a disability services coordinator, they will stay with that coordinator, most likely, unless, they leave or retire, till the end of their time at UW-Whitewater. But there are a lot more resources, and I think it's perfect. It's a set of new faces, and it can be like that each semester. And am I the next one too, Marissa? Yeah. Okay, sorry. So the differences, again, between high school and college. So students don't have an IEP or a 504 plan. What we do is get you set up with an accommodation plan. Students do not always have the same access to accommodations that they did in high school. And by that, we mean accommodations look different. And we kind of go into more detail about that in our next slide. But so this could be, we don't modify tests, things like that. I know Marissa's going to talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to give an example. And students must request their services and disclose their disability diagnosis in order to receive accommodations. So something that's really important is that first day on campus, when students go to class, if you have not connected with our disability services office, your instructors are not going to know that you have an accommodation plan. So it's really important that you reach out for those services right away or during your application process.
All right. So you might be wondering what kind of accommodations that you could receive in college. So this will be the same throughout. So at Whitewater, at Blackhawk Technical College, and at UROC, or other colleges that you're looking at. So what's allowed in college? You'll see extended time on exams or quizzes. We allow a low distraction room for testing. We have sign language interpreting, volunteer note taking. We also offer in-class aids or out-of-class aids. for some students, and then assistive technology, like Deb was saying. And we also have audio note takers and smart pens as well for some students. So what's not allowed in high school? So like Allie was saying, you're not allowed to have a modified curriculum. You're not allowed to use notes or note cards on tests unless your professor allows you to. Exam retakes are not allowed. We do not allow extra time on assignments or modified assignments. And we don't allow personal care aides unless they're provided by the Disability Center. So a lot of times I tell high schoolers that I work with, if you do have those accommodations that are in the not allowed or not provided, maybe talk to your IEP team, case manager, and try scaling those back. Maybe your first part of your senior year or the spring semester of your senior year to get used to not using those accommodations in college. So who is eligible for disability services? So students who have physical disabilities, students who are on the autism spectrum, visual or hearing impairments, learning disabilities, ADHD, psychological disorders, so anxiety, depression, PTSD, students who have traumatic brain injuries or concussions, or students with chronic health conditions. So like Allie was saying, your disability center is not going to know you need accommodations unless you reach out to them. So the first day of classes, if you have not reached out to the disability center, you will not be able to have accommodations for those classes unless you reach out.
Can I add something really quick, Marissa?
Of course.
Oh, actually, you know what? I might cover it in the next slide. So I think we're good. So as we were saying, that your instructors aren't going to know that you have accommodations until you get connected with our office. Now, when you do apply either to Rock County or the main campus, we encourage students to disclose in their application, whether it's your personal statement or I believe it might ask on the, I haven't looked at the application. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But if you feel comfortable disclosing your disability, that way we have a great relationship with our admissions, because what they do then is they will reach out to us to make sure that we get in contact with you. So what you would do if you wanted to access disability services at Whitewater is you would submit an application. Our application is online. You would submit your documentation. So your IEP, 504 plan, any physician documentation. This could be any recent or past evaluations, anything from like a mental health professional. And students also may be requested to submit more than one type of documentation. If a student has multiple, more than one diagnosis, we may request more documentation for that. And you will meet with you'll get assigned a disability services coordinator. We reach out and then you will meet for an intake. And during that intake, we discuss your documentation and accommodations, answer your questions. We talk about maybe the accommodations that you've used in the past, what you found helpful, what maybe wasn't helpful. And then just kind of get a general idea of what you're possibly thinking about majoring in. And yeah.
All right. So with the accommodations that I just was mentioning in the other slides, at Whitewater, we have kind of like 3 tiers of services that we offer. So tier 1 is those mandated services. So these services don't have any fee associated with it. Every college most likely will have some sort of services like this. So this includes the application for disability services, your intake or accommodation plan, requesting services. We also train you for services, and then obviously the delivery of services. And then in the tier 2 services are a little higher than tier 1. So this is pre-enrollment. So some students are eligible to get priority registration, meaning that they can register for classes before the whole university registers for their classes that semester. We also offer a fall orientation at Whitewater for students with disabilities. So in this orientation is where all of our students get trained on the services that they are receiving at Whitewater. And then basic assistive technology. So again, the audio note taking, we have text to speech technology. And then like Allie was saying, we do have ongoing case management, and we have a disability service coordinator. Each college will have some type of disability service coordinator, but some of their names will be different. So I know they could be called an access specialist. So I encourage you, when you do look at different colleges, to look at the disability page on their website and see what their case managers are called. And then at Whitewater, we have our fee-based programs, which is our tier 3 program. So these are all fee-based services that we offer at Whitewater, and I go a little bit more into them in the next slide. Deb, do you want to mention anything about Blackhawk Technical College?
No, kind of like we have just about everything that you said. We don't do the tier 3 services. We don't have any fee-based services. All of our services that we provide are, but we provide all of tier 1 and I would say all of tier 2, except for the ongoing case management. However, I'm the only disability coordinator, and then I have my assistant. So as students need case management or need to talk to me, it pretty much, I'm their case manager, and I will provide case management as needed and as requested. So pretty much BTC has all of tier 1 and tier 2. We just don't have a fee-based success services. But really, to reiterate what they said, is really it's going to be different. Every school who gets financial aid is required to have a center for disabilities or disability services, but it's going to look relatively different depending on when you get above and beyond those tier 1 services. So it's really important to meet that person and talk with that person if it's a place you're considering.
Yeah. And I know disability offices are always willing to do informational meetings or come onto campus and tour the campus, meet with the disability service people. So definitely reach out. And just so a little bit about our fee-based programs. So at Whitewater, we have a summer transition program. So this is just for students with disabilities. It's a program of opportunity for all incoming freshmen who have disabilities. So the students take 2 3-credit courses. They're able to live on campus, and this program happens in the month of July for 1 month. And they're able to get really familiar with our disability services as well as college life and just all the resources that we have on campus. It's a great stepping stone for students that aren't really sure if college or 4-year college is right for them. They're able to go through this program and learn about note-taking skills, study skills, and see if it's right for them. We also have a conditional admissions program through our admissions office. So this program is for students who don't meet the standard Whitewater admissions requirements. So admissions at Whitewater's looks at their GPA, your personal statement, your high school transcripts. So if you don't meet the standard admissions requirements and you disclose in your personal statement that you have either an IEP, a 504 plan, or your whole personal statement is about your disability, that lets our admissions office know that you are a student with a disability, and it sends your admissions application to our disability office. So we'll review your application, and if we see that you are able to be a conditional admissions student, you will be required to complete the summer transition program, get a 3.0 or better, and then you can continue on to Whitewater's campus in the fall. Another fee-based program we have is our adaptive transportation. We call it Warhawk Wheels. So this is a pickup and drop-off service for on and off campus rides. So students who are in wheelchairs or have physical disabilities. And we also offer temporary rides. So let's say a student breaks their leg or tears their ACL, they're able to receive temporary accommodations for this service. We also have what's called Project Assist. So this is a one-on-one tutoring program that we offer. The tutoring includes academic tutoring, organizational tutoring, and drop-in tutoring. All the tutors are trained to work with students with disabilities, and it's a really good program to have that one-on-one tutor that you can meet throughout all the semester as many times as you want. And then we also have Employment Connections. So this program promotes and supports undergrads and grad students that are looking for work, they're looking for internships, and they also help with your resume and postgraduate employment outcomes. I think this is yours, Allie.
Yep. So self-disclosure, something that's going to be really important to talk to or for students to start working on is their self-advocacy. So students are not required to request accommodations. And like we mentioned before, if you do not request your accommodations each semester, your instructors are not going to know that you utilize services. So it's really important that you are meeting with your disability services coordinator and requesting your accommodations each semester and advocating for yourself with your instructors. If a student's been approved for services, they need to tell their professors if they want to use those services. So when it is time for you to meet with your disability services coordinator, you guys will send out your accommodation plan. And it gets sent to each of your instructors with a detailed description of each accommodation that you've been approved for and how to implement that in the classroom. If students choose not to disclose, the instructor is not obligated to provide any accommodations. And students are responsible for monitoring their own performance, attendance, and work. So something that I tell students right away during the intake meeting is that I will never know your grades. I will never know your attendance, and I will never know if you're turning things in on time. And so it's really important that students get comfortable reaching out for help. You know, one of the biggest things I say is that we can give students all of the resources and accommodations, but it's up to them if they're going to use them or not. So it's really important that they understand that if they are not advocating for themselves and they are not letting us know what's going on, we won't have any idea. So it's really important.
All right, so a little bit about our disability service coordinators, or I say like case managers. So every DSC at Whitewater has a caseload about 100 to 150 students. Again, they help you decide your accommodations. They help you set up an accommodation plan for when you're in college. They'll answer any questions. And again, like Allie was saying, when students reach out, we'll refer you to on and off campus resources that will help the student. They have check-in meetings with their student. Again, it's up to the student to reach out to their coordinator. So if the student isn't reaching out, the disability service coordinator thinks everything's okay, they're getting A's. So it's really up to the student to advocate and ask for help. Some students have check-in meetings once a week. Other students will just have check-in meetings every semester. So it really depends on the student and their needs. They help students develop self-advocacy skills and help them with their independence. They really like to focus on the student's strengths. And again, like Allie was saying, we do not monitor class attendance or grades. That is up to the students.
I'm just going to add something really quick, Marissa. Something that we can also do is if a student is struggling in a class and maybe they have fallen behind, one thing that I think is helpful is having that support from their disability services coordinator, whether it's just us sending an email to the instructor and meeting with the instructor, the student, and, you know, for example, myself or Marissa, and just helping the student advocate for themselves. I think that does help. And I think it also, it can tend to make students feel a little bit more comfortable not all students. Some students want to do things on their own, which is absolutely understandable. But I will say that we are no strangers. We're not a stranger to working with instructors and faculty on campus.
Thanks, Allie. And then just get in contact with us. If you have any questions, contact me or Allie. I know that Tim put all of our links in the chat. And we're willing to, if you want to come to our campus, you could sign up with admissions and come see our disability service office and have a meeting with us to talk more about how we can help you. So I believe that is it. Let me stop sharing. All right, any questions?
You guys did fantastic on time. I really appreciate it. So please feel free to unmute yourself. I'll be watching little microphones in the left-hand corner so that I know who is talking when. I'll be unpinning the presenters in just a moment. You can also put your questions into the chat and I'll be more than happy to read them for people. So please let us know what your questions are out there. I know they covered a lot of information, but there's tons more. I'm sure other questions because each case is individual. I'd also be very interested to know, if you showed up tonight based on, higher education options, what is it that you expected to hear that we didn't cover? Would be a really good question as well. Brandy does have there is a question about deadline for applying for disability services. So you apply for the college, you have to get in touch with disability services. Could a student do so partway in the semester? Let's say they, sign up, they register, they get in, and then they start struggling. Can they still come to disability services?
Absolutely. We see this sometimes more often than not, where a student thinks, I don't need my accommodations. I think I'm going to be fine. Or a parent phone call of, they wanted to do this themselves, which is great. And we definitely encourage the independence. However, I encourage every student to get set up right away because they don't have to use their accommodation plan if they don't want to. But as long as they have it in place, say they are struggling midway through the semester, we're able to then start to implement that plan back into the classroom and see if maybe that can help them. Because that does happen. I will say also for some of our services, we really encourage students to get signed up right away because we do have some services, whether it's our project assist or even with all our alternative media, those services kind of have, I don't know how to say it. With alternative media, like it can take 4 to 6 weeks for us to get books uploaded. For Project Assist, it can take a little bit of time for us to get students paired with tutors. So the earlier students get signed up, the better. Marissa or Deb, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would agree with Allie that the sooner the better. A lot of times I will encourage students to get signed up right away at the beginning, get me their documentation because once they decide that they need help, it's, usually it's already too late for the most part. Services are not retroactive, and typically most colleges, BTC is different in that I do not require accommodations in order to put into place a provisional plan if I know documentation is coming. So, you know, maybe you guys do that, I don't know. But I do not need to have documentation in my office, but it is better to have it than to not. But, you know, if you've come to me after you failed your midterm, chances are you don't even have a chance of recovering. And accommodations are not retroactive. We can implement them the day you request them, but it's still, you know, like they said, audiobooks takes times, you know, even though interpreting, sign language interpreting is required, if you show up the day of your first day of class and I don't know you're coming, it's going to be really hard to find you an interpreter, and then even more hard to find you an interpreter that's consistent with you throughout the semester. The sooner you request those type of services, then I can hopefully get you the same interpreter rather than just piecemealing it together throughout the semester. So, and like they said, you can choose which class and which test and which, you know, whatever you want to utilize your accommodations are. So it's better to have it and not use it than not have it and need it moving forward.
I could take the next question, Tim. Someone asked, can you define the support of in-class aides? So at Whitewater, we offer in-class aides. They're different than what you would get in high school. So an in-class aide looks like for a student, let's say, with a physical disability that needs help, either with writing something or getting something on their backpack. So we have note-taking accommodations. That is a separate accommodation. So they don't help with note-taking, but they help with those physical aspects in class that some students aren't able to do, if that answers your question.
So generally, the in-class aides are with the physical disabilities.
Yeah, I would say most of the time, yeah.
Or I don't mean to jump in, but if like a student has maybe a visual impairment or something like that, we would get them set up with an in-class aide. Another thing, Deb, you made me think of another reason why it's important to get set up right away is, like Deb mentioned, if a student needs a sign language interpreter or if they need captions, we have to let instructors know so they can get all of their material captioned. So it's really important that students are getting set up early. I just mentioned that because that's been something that I had to deal with this year. So
It's always good to reflect on the lessons learned. Any other, so what kind of like testing information from high schools is helpful for post-secondary plans? Are there specific standardized tests that students should be looking for? And then that opens up, you know, my question too, there's different places that use the term disability documentation. What is there testing, specific testing, and then broader, what sort of documentation are you guys looking for?
Well, I can speak to that since I just had to write a document for people who are coming to review my documents tomorrow. So I use the AHEAD, which is the Association for Higher Education, you know, with disabilities. So basically they say their number one documentation is student report. So their number one documentation is student report. Secondary documentation is observation. So that could be observation from me or observation from their instructors. And then the third part of documentation is actually those third party records. So, and I think and some colleges, you know, a lot of colleges do require that third party documentation. And ultimately, I like to have that third party documentation in my files just as a means to support the first and second. But if it boils down to it, you know, student reports, students really have a good way of knowing what, you know, their disability is, or what, you know, more so, you know, older students, our case managers, you know, I've had students that come in and say, oh, well, I had, you know, excess help, you know, back in 1973, well, they knew what they needed. They knew all the supports they knew. They knew that they're not doing well now and they struggle with that. And all they need is some extra time to read something. Well, to me, that's enough documentation with student report, and they're probably never going to be able to afford a $3,000 psych eval in order to get approved for somebody to read. Would we be able to provide that type of, assistance for like a national certification exam or something like that? Probably not. But to get, extra time on an exam in their psychology class, yes. So a lot of times it is on a case-by-case basis and a program-by-program basis as well. So they might get testing accommodations in some of their classes, whereas like if they're on a clinical site and need to be able to perform CPR in 5 minutes, they don't get 10 minutes just because they're a student with a disability. So there's different things, and you have to look at it as a case-by-case basis as well. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, to just piggyback on that, Deb, we really like to make the intake appointment an interactive process. So talking to the student, figuring out what their strengths are in school, what their weaknesses, how their disability, again, learning about your disability in high school, talking with your case managers, your teachers, how your disability impacts you in school is really helpful when we do have those conversations. And then in regards to the ACT and SAT scores, I know for UW system right now, that's optional. I believe till 2023 due to COVID, that is optional to have. You can either have your ACT or SAT scores sent to the school, or you don't have to submit them at all. So that's just a little something nice that they're offering.
And then I just want to chime in is that as we look at, testing and post-secondary plans, is that this is a process that should be starting in high school with different assessments depending on the student's college and career ready IEP. And so there may be specific assessments or aptitude tests that may be needed depending on the student's ongoing what they want to do after high school. And so it's a great opportunity using the college and career ready IEPs to get those assessments done and to prepare for those testings and to plot out that course, knowing that at 14 years old, all of us have this brief idea about what we might want to do, and that will change over high school. And it's the same for our kiddos with disabilities. So just because we write it into a CCR IEP freshman year, dang it, all that could change after a year because, well, kiddos with disability are people too. And so that ongoing need to figure out what it is that's going to support their current plan for post-secondary.
I wanted to answer the question. I realized I responded directly to the person and not to everyone. So I'm sorry about that. It was about what accommodations we offer for students who may be blind or have visual impairments, and if we offer the similar accommodations for graduate students. So for students that may have visual impairments, we make sure that materials are in an accessible format, whether it's enlargements, Braille. We have different technology that we can get students set up with, Zoom text. We sadly our disability services coordinator that works with the majority of our students with visual impairments is leaving us. But one of the cool things I will say is there's a lot of technology I'm learning about. So we have, just to throw this plug in there about Rock County, some of the students that go to the Wisconsin School for the Blind and Visually Impaired also take classes at Rock. So we have been lucky to learn about more technology that I didn't even know of. So yes, we definitely have accommodations that can be helpful. And then students are offered the same accommodations even in grad school. So yeah.
Yeah, I would have to reiterate, same way with Ally says, we have a lot of the students from Wisconsin School for the Blind too, you know, in their 18 to 21-year-old program who come in, and we have, you know, what's really cool is a lot of times they know what accommodations they need before we do. I worked at a blind rehab facility for 5 years, so I know quite a bit about working with blind people, but you know, my very first student at Blackhawk Tech was a blind person who told me they wanted to go into the culinary program, and I thought, wow, I just moved 9 hours to work with a student that I have no idea what to do with. And, you know, it really involved me sitting down and talking with him and finding out what he needs and convincing the rest of the staff that he wasn't going to spill a pan of boiling water on them, and, you know, locating him closer to the sink, locating him close to the stove, you know, putting some, you know, fabric paint on some of the stove dials, you know, it was really, you know, so really a lot of times students, you know, especially students that are familiar with working with a variety of accommodations will be able to tell you what works for them and what doesn't. So that's why, you know, again, going back to that, really encouraging your students to get familiar with their accommodations and the assistive technology and things that work for them, so they can communicate that need as they move on, either in employment or in post-secondary.
I'm just gonna, sorry, apparently I have a lot to say today.
That's great. Thanks, Ally.
I think Deb makes a really good point that students, they do sometimes often know more than we do about what their accommodations are. And so I think what's really important is that students just learning how to make their needs known and understanding what their needs are. And understanding they may have a unique set of needs. So it's just the self-advocacy piece, the independence, and knowing what their accommodations are is going to be really important.
And then another question in the chat, is there assistance at any of your places with like finding classes, some minor daily living skills if a student lives on campus? Because, you know, some of our kiddos have this thing called executive functioning that doesn't function. And so they need help with just getting things in order and where to go. Do you guys offer any help with that?
We don't offer, oops, sorry, my light, specific help. However, I'll just plug in, if you know about UW Life program, it's a new program at Whitewater. So this program is for students with more cognitive disabilities that want to really work on those independent living skills, social skills. So at the Life program, the students actually live on Whitewater's campus and are able to be integrated into Whitewater's. They take some classes and they do different activities on campus. So they're with all the rest of the students, but with their program as well. So that's another great program that if you want to know more information, we can definitely give you more information about that. That really works on those independent living skills. I know at Whitewater, some students take a freshman seminar with transition mentors or peer mentors, first semester of their freshman year. So they're able to talk to a student that is at Whitewater, and the peer mentor can help them, especially those first few weeks of classes, even just finding your class. So those are some of the options that we have.
All right, I have thrown the link for a feedback survey because we always want to know how this went and we want to know what future topics you might do. As the Southern Regional Center continues to do transition talks throughout the Southern region. Very grateful to be able to partner with the school district of Janesville. Very thankful tonight that Marissa, Ally, and Deb could join us this evening, and that y'all could join us, and you hung around for the whole hour. Group, you are amazing people. So I hope you go ahead and have a great rest of your night. Please take a moment. It's a very short survey to, leap over to that survey. I will just hang here for a couple more moments. I'm going to stop the recording, but if there's any final questions that people may have wanted to ask off the recording, we'll give you a moment to do that. So thank you all for attending. We'll get everybody's contact information will be in their slideshows. We'll get the slideshows out to you. So thank you all for being here.